Greetings, friends. Nice to see you again. Hey, it's time for another song tale. And for families, a song tale is really just a story that you sing. And frankly, you can sing any story if you'd like. So, friends, I challenge you to choose a story or a book from your library and try singing it. Make up a tune, just like Arioso Land. All right, for families not in Mr. Hampton's class, Arioso is when we just make up songs, you know. Doot, I like pudding and I like beans, but not together, because that would be crazy. I mean, anything can be an Arioso. So I encourage you to have an Arioso land of your very own. Remember, in Arioso land, you don't talk, you only sing. So if you're in the land of Arioso, you always sing the things that you're saying. So today, while I'm in the land of Arioso, I will sing another song tale for you. I'm going to leave the land of Arioso for a minute here. There's a hole in the bucket, adapted by John M. Feyerabend and illustrated by Marissa Madonna. And for families that have been paying attention, this John M. Feyerabend name comes up a lot. Kind of a strange spelling there, Feyerabend. And he's the leading music educator currently in the world, leading the charge with elementary music. And I was lucky enough to have his wife, Lily Feyerabend, as my music teacher. So the Feyerabend repertoire is near and dear to my heart because it's what helped me love music as much as I do. So a lot of these song tales are adapted by John Feyerabend, and his college students in Connecticut helped illustrate. So here is, there's a hole in the bucket. And of course, if you remember the words, you can sing along with me. There's a hole in the bucket. It's about Liza and Georgie's fishing trip. And there's some old-timey words and language too, so maybe we'll talk about that as we go along. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, a hole. Mend the hole in the bucket, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Mend the hole in the bucket, dear Georgie. Mend the hole. Mend the hole. What does mend mean? Mend means to fix. With what shall I mend it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I mend it, dear Liza? With what? With a straw, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With a straw, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With a straw. Not like a straw that you would drink from, right? A straw like some hay or a long piece of plant matter that you could sew things with. The straw is too long, dear Liza, dear Liza. The straw is too long, dear Liza, too long. Then cut it, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Then cut it, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, cut it. With what shall I cut it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I cut it, dear Liza? With what? Of course, if you're going to use this tool, you're using it with an adult, someone that knows how to use it safely. Maybe you've used one when you're fishing. With a knife, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With a knife, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With a knife. The knife is too blunt, dear Liza, dear Liza. The knife is too blunt, dear Liza, too blunt. Blunt. The knife is too blunt. What do you think blunt means? It's not sharp enough. The knife is not sharp enough. Whet the knife then, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Whet the knife then, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Whet it. In this case, not wet, as in get it wet with water, but whet it. Whet is going to mean to sharpen. You see those worms getting out? With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I wet it, dear Liza? With what? So what are they going to sharpen it with? What do you think? With a stone, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With a stone, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, a stone. If you're fishing, maybe mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or an aunt or uncle, whatever adult is with you, uses a sharpening stone to sharpen the knife. The stone is too dry, dear Liza, dear Liza. The stone is too dry, dear Liza, too dry. Wet the stone then, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Wet the stone then, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. Wet it. This time wet is to get it wet. With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I wet it, dear Liza? With what? With the water, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. With the water, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, the water. In what shall I get it, dear Liza, dear Liza? In what shall I get it, dear Liza? In what? In the bucket, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, dear Georgie. In the bucket, dear Georgie, dear Georgie, the bucket. But there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, a hole. There's a hole in the bucket. Thank you so much, friends. We'll see you in another video.